Hello and welcome to the Honkai Part 1 ARC tier list. I am going to be talking about what I think about every arc, and I'm going to be ranking them. Alright, this arc is the very beginning. This is chapter 1 and 2. I'm gonna put this in B because there's not a lot to it, but also it's the introduction. There isn't really any story yet, so that would make sense. But chapter 2 is a really good chapter to get people hooked on the game. It got me hooked on the game, which is impressive because it was only chapter 2, and for that reason alone, I'm going to put it at B tier. Alright, and this next arc is the same, B tier. Chapter 3 and 4 were really boring. It was interesting learning about Wendy's past for a bit, but then she just got killed off screen, so whatever. Chapter 5 and 6 were a lot more engaging though, and it's actually the first time that we get a peek into what Honkai really is. It's not this cute, adorable little friendly game. It's a dark game where children are getting experimented on. So I do like chapter 5 and 6, but I don't like chapter 3 and 4. For that reason, B tier. This arc, chapters 7 through 9, A tier. This is the first out of many A tiers. A lot of these are probably going to be A. This story is so good. But yeah, this is the first time we get depression. Our first dose of depression. Final lesson. And honestly, it's a pretty good first dose. I mean, you get depressed for at least a week, and that's good enough for me. No, but seriously, I mean, this arc is where we really get to see Honkai's true colors, and I do want to point out this line in chapter 8 where Fuhua and Himiko are debating on whether sacrifices in war are necessary. Fuhua says they are, but Himiko says that the only haunting part about saying that is we've gotten used to deaths in war, which is a goated line, and it not only foreshadows what's to come in chapter 9, Himiko's death obviously, but it also kind of foreshadows what happens in chapter 22, and that's all I'm going to say for now. Alright, this arc, chapters 10 through 12, B tier. This is the first really serious after chapter 9, the game becomes all serious. There's no happiness in the game at all anymore after chapter 9. There's a bit of happiness, but it's mostly depression and sadness. It is a really good arc, but once you play the rest of part 1, this arc just doesn't stand out as much as all the other ones. I'm sorry, it has to go in B tier. Chapter 11 EX is part of that arc, and it's amazing. Chapter 11 EX is so good. It is super dark, but that's what I love about it. I love when games aren't afraid to do that. It's not enough to get this arc from a B to an A, though. I will say, this is something I want to talk about. Seele appeared in this arc. She appeared in chapter 11. At first, I didn't think much of her because I thought she was just a character to boost Bronia's character. She didn't really stand out to me. I was just like, oh yeah, that's Bronia's friend. She's gonna help Bronya grow as a character now that she found Seele again after 5 years. But then all of that changed in the Seele animation. I watched that Seele animation, and from then on I saw her as her own character. And I even think she's better than Bronya. Sorry Bronya, but it's true. She straight up dived into the Sea of Quanta, which is a super dangerous place, just to go save her friend. That's amazing, but not enough to put this arc up to an A, I'm sorry to say. This arc is the same, it's a B, just because it's the same as chapters 10 through 12. This one didn't really stand out to me as much as the other arcs. I mean, this is the arc that introduces stealth mechanics, and those are really really cool. How you just automatically kill the enemy in one hit if you sneak up on them. That's an awesome quality. And the enhanced mechanics in Chapter 14 was kind of cool. May and Kiana joined back up together for like a few seconds and then got separated again. They get separated a lot. This game does not want them to be happy. Meteoric Salvation was actually the first time I felt weirdly like a parental figure. This game has a weird habit of making you feel like a parental figure, and this was the first time that feeling popped up for me. Just seeing Kiana in her Herrscher of the Void outfit, but with a blue eye. Yes, you finally learned how to control it, girl. So that was fun. But I don't really remember a lot from Chapter 13 and 14. It's kind of forgettable. So yeah, B tier. Alright, now we're getting to the good arcs. Thunders over Nagazora, A tier. Definitely A tier. This arc is so good, but so sad at the same time. This is another arc where, kind of like Chapter 11 EX, I was surprised at how dark the story went. Kiana got a timer put on her life. She got the same thing Himiko did, space cancer. And I was slack-jawed after that moment because I obviously knew when I played Chapter 16, there were 34 chapters in the game, so I obviously knew she was gonna make it out, but I never thought that they would tease the idea of Kiana dying. The whole story of Chapter 17 was just depressing. Lament of the Fallen happens. It's just so heart-wrenching. This was the first arc where I truly felt May and Kiana's relationship bloom, because previously I knew that they cared for each other, I just didn't know to what extent they cared for each other. And this arc solidified it. Oh yeah, they would do anything for each other. And that shows. And I really like how well they portrayed that. There's another part where May gives Kiana some curry. Kiana's like, ooh, the perfect amount of spiciness and tastiness. Thank you, May. May goes to the other room and says, you lie like an idiot. That's not spicy at all. Oh, she can't taste anymore, but she's lying to May to make it seem like she's fine. Oh, definite 80. You know what? Possibly above this arc. It's so good. This arc, B tier, because Chapter 18 was really boring, but Chapter 19 was amazing. Chapter 19 had the jaw-dropping moment of seeing Anna just run away from that little girl asking for help and dying alone. That happens to be Owl's sister. Oh my word. That was so shocking to me. And also, this is the first arc where Hershey's fused together. I kind of wish they used that more, because this is the only time that happens, but it's so cool. I want to learn the science behind why that happens, because has a Herrscher fused ever before, even in the previous era? I don't think there's ever a previously recorded time that happened. Anyway, they fused, they created this super Herrscher. We had a super awesome boss battle, and then a really sad moment with just talking to them moments before death. And the grave scene. Oh, the grave scene. Oh, I am a sucker for sentimental things on graves that the person that died cares about, putting that on their grave. So when they showed May putting the necklace on the grave, that broke me. The other half of the necklace to form the heart. Oh, man. If it was only Chapter 19, I would say A tier. But Chapter 18, sadly, Chapter 18 drags down to a B tier. There were some exciting things that happened. Owl's betrayal and a tease of Anna and Owl's relationship together. But other than that, it's pretty boring. Now, this arc is an A tier. I'm not sure what to say about this arc, actually. Except for talking about Shattered Samsara, I didn't really get a lot of it Fu-Hua's backstory is the most confusing thing ever. I have read immortal stories before playing this game. I've read books with immortal characters, and their trauma is really always the same. So when I first heard Fu-Hua was immortal, her past was kind of predictable. It's always like, yeah, everyone dies around you and you can't die with them. It sucks. You make friends and then they die from old age or other mishaps, but you can never die with them. You're constantly going to end up alone one way or the other, right? Now, Fu-Hua's past had a couple twists to it that I didn't expect, but she was betrayed. I never heard that one before. A Honkai eruption took her friend out. That was actually the saddest part about her past to me, is the fact that she had a very close friend for half a semester, and then it was just gone. Chapter 21 was really another chapter I didn't get, because at the time I still couldn't wrap my head around what Feng Huang Down was, and chapter 21 had a lot to deal with that. And then chapter 22 is really freaking good. There's no other way to say it. Chapter 22 was just good. Remember when I was talking about chapter 8 and I said that Himiko and Fu-Hua had a debate on whether or not sacrifices are necessary in war? Fu-Hua was on the side that sacrifices were necessary in war, and Himiko was absolutely disgusted by Fu-Hua saying that. Well, not disgusted, but, kind of put off. I believe that's foreshadowed Samsara, since Kiana adopts the same mindset as Himiko did in that chapter and goes to save Fu-Hua, even though Fu-Hua was ready to die in that moment for great reason. She lived 50,000 years. She had a terrible life, betrayals, friends dying. It was crap. So she was basically ready to die, as well as, her belief that sacrifices are necessary in war. But Kiana kind of changed her beliefs. Not all of her beliefs, but some of her beliefs in one single movement, and that is saving her. That showed to Fu-Hua that, Kiana actually cares, and it's pretty clear that no one's tried to save Fu-Hua before, and she's always been alone. So that was really sweet. Chapters 23 through 25, do we even have to think about this one? No, we don't. S tier. First S tier of the tier list here. Chapter 23 was a lot of Veliona character development, and I didn't know I wanted that until I got it. Chapter 23 just made me tear up with the way the puppets were bullying her, and it kind of got to Veliona's head a little bit, with her looking all down and depressed and jealous about the fact that Sayla's hanging out with Kiana, and that she was having flashbacks to when Sayla said that she will always need Veliona. That made me tear up. That was powerful. Speaking of the puppets, I love the Ursha of Domination. I love that it's not just one person, it's 1,000 puppets. That's so creepy, and it sets the tone really well. I just like it. I don't know what else to say except I like it. Chapter 24, them bringing the Hyperion into the Theater of Domination was really sick, but that all doesn't matter because we need to talk about Chapter 25. Chapter 25, easily one of the best chapters in Honkai Impact. It blew me away the first time I played it. The amount of things that happened. Let's go one by one here. Alright, first of all, Siren finally got defeated. That's a huge thing to happen right off the bat, because Siren has been torturing Kiana endlessly since Chapter 2. And when she finally got defeated, I was shocked. In my mind, I was like, is this really happening right now? Is Siren finally going to get defeated? Are we finally going to win? And I didn't really believe it when it was happening. And then after it happened, I kind of teared up a bit because that's such a big moment for Kiana. She finally defeated her demon. And not only that, right after that moment happens, the whole Himiko thing happens, which is absolutely insanity. I love the fact that instead of Kiana just walking and going out that door, she instead goes but then turns back and says, "You know what? I know I should be mature and smile and walk out and say I'm gonna do my best job, but I'm just not. I'm just not having that. I want you here to see it all. I'm broken right now." Like, oh, that is so good! Kiana is the best for facing her feelings instead of hiding them yet again. And I think chapter 17 showed her that doesn't really work. So shout out to May for getting her to realize that doesn't work. Kiana faced her feelings, and we got this really sweet section with Himiko comforting her. The entire section Himiko was around, I felt like I was about to burst into tears, which was a really weird sensation and feeling to feel. And then after that we had the cool boss, and then Everlasting Flames, and then Himiko's funeral, and then Alicia shows up. Just so much happens. So much goated crap happens in one single chapter. How the hell am I supposed to go through it all? It's so deserved the best here. It's the best. Thus Spoke Apocalypse, A tier. This arc was hyped up right off the bat because it was Otto's arc. And Otto has been a character that has been messing with us again since chapter 2. Or since before the game, actually. Kiana is a clone, so basically her whole life has been Ottoified. Is the correct way to put it, I guess. I really like the fact that this arc is right after chapter 25 because it sends like a silent narrative that before you deal with the biggest enemies in your life, you have to deal with your own doubts and negativity first. And in chapter 25, we defeated our own crap, and now we can fight our enemies. I really like that sentiment. And again, since Otto was up our ass since before the game started, so it was going to be really nice to finally get that long-awaited backstory on the villain that messed with us for decades. And let me tell you, it was really good. Chapter 26, it was very satisfying to get his whole plan. His plan was to turn back time 500 years by bending the imaginary tree, bending their branch of the imaginary tree to save Callan. Basically, he was a simp for his entire life. And his methods were crap, but he was a faithful man through and through. Not that it mattered though, cause Callan was into Sakura, so screw you, man! Do you think Otto hates gay people because of that? I would say so, yeah. Us finally getting to see who the real Kiana is and seeing that it was Durandal was a big reveal. That was good. Thus Spoke Apocalypse was good. I will say the one bad thing about that entire arc is the afterward section was kind of unnecessary. It was just an hour of doing certain tasks before heading off to another place. I will say Rita and Durandal reaffirming their duties was good, but that's all that was good in the afterward. The afterward kind of sucked. Elysium Everlasting. Oh, a lot of people praise this arc to no end. A lot of people are not going to agree with me, but C tier. That's right. Now listen. Put down your pitchforks, okay? I really enjoy the fact that a lot of you guys like this arc. That's great for you. I love that. I love that you guys think it's a 10 out of 10 godly arc. It just wasn't my thing. and that's fine. I only cared for 5 out of the 13 Flame Chasers, and that's not a lot, that's not even half. The pacing in this arc made me mad, and that was the first time that happened. Because I know Thus Spoke Apocalypse has like 6 to 7 hour chapters, but at least they talked about useful things, and it actually was kind of important, and the pacing wasn't that bad, so I could handle it. This was atrocious, in my opinion. The pacing was really slow, really just an awful thing all around. I hated it. Chapter 31 was actually really good. That's the only chapter in this arc I'd say I enjoy. And that's bad, considering this technically like a 6 chapter arc if we count Elysian Realm, which we should, because that goes along the same story. 1 out of 6 is not exactly a good ratio. But I really enjoyed Chapter 31. I think the remaining Flame Chasers, the one who haven't already died, the remaining Flame Chasers who tried their best to defeat the Hersher of Corruption, was actually a very wholesome moment that they all put aside their differences and just were like, alright, we gotta take care of this. The twist that May unintentionally brought Hersher of Corruption into the Elysian Realm was a very good twist, in my opinion. At the very end, I loved the end of Act 1, where it turns out Alicia was born a Hersher, and the 13th Hersher doesn't really exist. It's not real. Act 2, seeing her as a little Bobby was nice. Banquet was cool. The goodbye section was emotional, I guess. But the pacing was too atrocious for me to find it emotional. The pacing just ruined all of Act 2 for me. If you want to hear more of what I have to say about it, there's a whole video on it. This arc, a lot of people did not like this arc. Well, not a lot of people did like this arc, they just had a lot of problems with it. Before going into this arc, I heard some things, and those things weren't that great, so I was nervous because I thought, oh, Hoyoverse, please don't flub up your story on the last story arc. That would be so heartbreaking, especially since it has been so good up to this point. But I'm very happy to say it was S tier. I like it very much. But I do understand why some people may not have liked it. I understood what went wrong, especially in the first half. Chapter 30, well, first of all, let me get this out of the way first. This arc was 4 chapters, which was a whole chapter longer than they usually are, which is just 3 chapters. But that kind of makes sense to me, at least, considering that this is the big bad boss to end part 1. This is the toughest challenge yet. Kind of makes sense that it would take longer, right? They want to go out with a bang. Part 1 finale, it's longer. It's 4 chapters instead of the usual 3. Sure, I wasn't that peeved by it. And then I think the problem with chapter 32 and 33 is that they came up onto this final arc and they went, oh crap, we're on the final arc, yet we forgot to talk about this and this about the world building, and this about the lore. What do we do? And then they thought just cramming all of the lore and all of the world building, along with trying to make a story out of this arc, those 3 things together made some pretty messy chapters with over-explaining and slow-paced dialogue, but I didn't really mind. Chapter 32 actually taught me more about bubble universes. I appreciate that. It was more chapter 33 where the problem started. Chapter 32 had that little moment at the ending where Kiana and May reconciled again, And they forgave each other for what they did in chapter 17, which was really cute. Made me tear up a bit, which is surprising because I don't usually tear up until it gets really serious at the end of arc, so that was really impressive to me. Chapter 33, kinda the same problem as chapter 31. Really slow pacing that kinda pissed me off. The only thing I liked about that chapter was Hare backstory. It was kind of like the Midas touch, if you guys have ever read that. But instead of everything he touches turns to gold, everything she goes near just dies. Which is great for Hawkeye, not great for meeting people because you don't want to kill them before you meet them. But other than that, it was kind of unnecessary in my opinion. It was like 3 hours too long. I think they could have shaved out a lot. But chapter 34 and 35 are the real reason this arc is S tier. Because chapter 34 and 35 were so good. First of all, chapter 34. Siegfried came back, which is really great for Kiana and Durandal. Durandal spoke out about the fact that her and Kiana are actually siblings, which is cool. They had a nice chat about how names signify completely different lives, which was a really, I think, necessary conversation to have. May hang out in the spiritual atom for a little bit with Alicia. May became the Hersher of Origin. And then chapter 35 with, of course, graduation trip, a dope-ass boss battle, and Kiana as a young child. Plus, I made a whole video about how Da Capo and the part 1 finale kinda changed my life. So I think that deserves an S tier. Yeah, I'd say that. In conclusion, I think you guys can see that I really like this game, judging by the fact that there's no D tier, only one C tier, and a hell of a lot of B and A tier. This game has one of the best stories I've ever had the pleasure of experiencing, and it happened so quick. This is not even a year into me playing, and it's already one of the best for me. It's so good. As long as the story quality never dips or the story gets absolute crap, I will never stop playing this game. Which, I'm not going to spoil anything because this is only a part 1 tier list, but the current story arc is pretty goated, and that's all I'm going to say. So that doesn't seem to be happening. I just love this game, and every arc I get like 2 times more invested in what's going on. I'm going to play the finale chapter of part 1.5 tomorrow on Christmas, so yeah, see you in chapter 42.